Hi, and welcome back to Becca Babbles podcast. I'm your host, Becca. I'm a certified personal trainer, holistic health coach, and future chiropractor on my way to figuring out this thing we call life. Now, let's get babbling. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Becca Babbles podcast. And I hope you guys liked the title of this episode. I feel like it's very polarizing. Or at least, like, when I thought of the idea of the title of this episode, I was like, this is going to be a good one. And if you don't already know, we're going to be talking about how your dream aesthetics are causing your pain or causing dysfunction in your body. Now that I'm in clinic and like seeing patients consistently, I get to hear a lot of things and see a lot of things that like I heard my professors and other mentors talk about. And I'm like, oh, this is so real. And I know on Instagram you see a lot of people like sucking in their stomach or like sticking their booty out, and we kind of like make jokes about that and be like, "Oh, that's so funny." But people are actually doing that, and this is actually causing an issue. And I wanted to kind of break down why this is an issue, because sometimes people just say like, oh yeah, everyone's just sticking their booty out, or oh yeah, we've been told by our great great grandmother or sometimes just grandmas to like suck in our stomachs and that's normal. But like, I want to actually give you like why that is not okay, and not just like of a body image issue, but also because it could be causing some of the pain that you're experiencing in your body right now, and what to do about it. I don't just want to leave you hanging and be like, yeah, I'm okay, that's not right, like go on your merry way. I'm actually going to help you understand what you should do about it. And I'd already kind of teased this a little bit, but let's talk about sucking in your stomach for a bit. Who told you you needed to suck in your stomach? Or was this just something that you thought you had to do? This may have happened because, like, maybe you were insecure. Maybe someone said something about your stomach. Maybe you were in the dressing room and trying on some clothes and you just noticed your stomach, or someone said something, or maybe a family member said something. So then you just started sucking in your stomach. Or maybe you went to a Pilates class and they told you, hey, to protect your low back, you need to suck in your stomach. Well, I want to tell you right now that like sucking in your stomach actually causes your core to be really unstable. Now, when I talk about your core, so your stomach is an organ. So that's something that like helps break down food. But typically when people talk about their stomach, they're talking about like the cylinder part here in your like, and that's called your core. So your core is made up of your what's called your rectus abdominis, which is in the front, and then your oblique muscles, which are on the side. You have an internal and an external, and then you have your like your lats kind of come down into that in on your back, but then also the fascia of your lats are kind of in there on your low back. And then you've got your like psoas muscles that attach to like your lower lumbar spine or your low back. But there's not a ton of muscles in the back of your core that actually stabilize your low back. You do have your transverse abdominis that wraps all the way around, but we'll talk about that in a sec because there is some debunking I need to be doing. So that is what your core is made up of. Now, if you think of a soda can, I wish I had one right now because I was drinking one earlier. Not a soda can, but like one of those sparkling waters. But if you imagine a can has a ton of pressure in it when you haven't opened it yet. And I've actually seen this done before, but if you get a soda can and you step on it, it doesn't break. You can stand on that thing because it's got a lot of pressure in it. But then once you open up that soda can and pour it all out, and then you step on it, it completely crumbles. That is what happens with your core. Your core is able to create this 360-degree pressure so that it can protect specifically your lower back, but also to help you like transmit forces across your body. When you don't have that pressure that is created in your core, then you don't have a stable foundation. Think of it this way. Your core is kind of like the foundation of your house, or like let's go with skyscraper. So we've got a skyscraper. It has to have a stable foundation. And then I think it's California where they have all the earthquakes and you see like the skyscrapers like shaking back and forth or the buildings swaying back and forth. The reason why those buildings aren't able to like fall apart is because they've got a stable foundation so that the distal segments, or the part of the building that's further away from the foundation, is able to move and not break. That's what happens in your body. Your core is your foundation so that your shoulder and like your arm and your hips and your knees and your legs can move around freely and like catch things, can throw things, can go running. But what happens if you don't have that stable foundation? Then you can experience shoulder pain. You could experience hip pain. You can experience knee pain because then they have to take over for what they're not meant for. So that's why it's important to have that 360 core pressure, and why sucking in your stomach can cause you to not actually have that pressure because now you're not like that soda can. Another example that one of my mentors actually gave me was, if you take someone, you can like test this on your friends right now. If I had someone here, I wish I had someone to test this out on, but you can take someone and tell them like, hey, I want you to like plant your feet on the ground and imagine that like try and just like get big through your core and like breathe out. They'll do that and then you'll try and push them over. It's going to be really hard to push them over. Or you could tell them like brace your core and let me try and push you over. They're typically going to stay pretty still. Now what I want you to tell them to do is suck in your stomach. You're going to like push them over with like a finger. It's really weird when this happens, but that just goes to show that you're not strong in your core when you suck in your stomach. And you may be still questioning, like, but like, my personal trainer or my Pilates instructor told me to pull in my, like, suck in when I'm doing my Pilates exercises because that's going to help protect my low back. And there's two reasons why they told you this. Because it wasn't that they were like, ha, I'm actually going to make them have back pain and they're going to come and see me forever and all this stuff. Like, that wasn't ill intent. They actually were trying to help you because, for two reasons. One, because they were trying to keep you from, and if you're watching the video, you'll see this, hopefully. They're trying to keep you from doing this and actually pressing your, like, low back into the ground. Or they read this study by Hodges in 1999, where he did this study that showed that the transverse abdominis, which was that muscle that I talked about earlier that wraps around your entire core, it had said that people with low back pain have delayed reaction time firing when they're doing arm movements. But people who didn't have low back pain didn't have this issue. And so a ton of people started citing this study and was like, hey, see, look at this, look at this. And they didn't read the entire study where he actually talks about all the other muscles that I had mentioned before, like your external obliques, your internal obliques, your rectus abdominis. All of these muscles also had delayed firing as well in people with low back pain. So then Stu McGill, which is another researcher, he did and he researched this and like did another study, and he found that there was better transverse activation when you tried activating all the other abdominal muscles. Because I was reading this in the Hodges study where he did say, like, hey, train the transverse abdominis in isolation. But then Stu McGill found in his study that, like, actually, when you train all the muscles together, which makes sense because it's your stable foundation, when you train them all together, they have a better activation and they create a stronger core. And that's why it's so important to not suck in, because you want to create a stable core. And if you do suck in, then that's going to create an unstable core. And now I want to kind of break down like the differences, because I've used words like bracing. I haven't used IAP yet, which is surprising. But you might have heard the terms like hollowing, things like that. And these are all different ways that you can contract your core, I guess is what you could call it. And I want you to be able to understand this if you were ever to like approach a conversation or kind of just like feel it in your body. So IAP, or intra-abdominal pressure, is when your diaphragm, when you breathe, comes down or it comes down, and then your pelvic floor also comes down. So everyone thinks that like your lungs are like what is part of your breathing, which they are, but your diaphragm is actually the main muscle when it comes to breathing and creates that pressure. So it's coming down, and your diaphragm is located like right underneath your rib cage. So it's going to come down your pelvic floor, which is basically like where your like crotch is. That's going to come down, and it's supposed to create this 360-degree pressure in your core to allow for some expansion. The intra-abdominal pressure is used for just daily, everyday activities, and this should just be an automatic thing that we do on a daily basis. But because of our positioning or trying to hollow or suck in our stomach, we start to lose this because we start to become chest breathers. Another way that you can manipulate your breathing or like stabilize your core is called bracing. So this is an isometric contraction of all those core muscles that I talked about earlier. This is when you think about like power lifters or Olympic lifters, or you're about to lift something like really, really heavy. They typically brace their core because they're about to do like a really high threshold activity. And so they need to kind of go like bear down so that they have an even stronger and stable core. The only downside to this is that when you're that like stiff with everything, you're not super great with speed or athletic movement. So almost think about running or playing tennis and you're running around on the court. But the interesting thing is that when you look at people who play tennis or play golf, they're super fluid and they're using intra-abdominal pressure when they're moving around. But then right as they're about to hit that ball, or right as they're about to like, well, I guess hit the ball is the only example I can really give. They get really stiff and tense, and so they like so that they have that power. So that's the ways that you're able to like move in and out of this. Now the only one that I would say that you probably shouldn't be doing is hollowing. And hollowing is what I was talking about when you bring belly button to spine. That is when you're just trying to isolate that transverse abdominis, and this creates a very unstable core. And it makes it really hard for your body to transmit forces across itself. So if you've ever heard of like anterior and posterior slings, this is what people are talking about from like your adductor muscles or your inner thigh muscles, all the way to your core, all the way to like your shoulder. Those muscles allow you to like when you're walking to transmit forces, so then when you're allowed to like take another step and your arm moves back and your leg moves forward, and then it just keeps going back and forth. And you have the same thing on the opposite side where it's like your hamstring to your glute to your lats all the way up to your to the back of your arm. These are all transmitting forces, but your body can't do that when you're hollowing in because it's creating all this tension in there, and it's kind of like error, 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 like this isn't working. So those are all the different ways that you can kind of like manipulate your core, and hopefully we'll create a better understanding when we go through this a little bit more within the podcast. Another reason why you don't want to suck in your stomach is that this creates a lot of tension within your pelvic floor. If you're anything like me, you're obsessed with the human body, and you may have heard from like a bunch of people talking about like pelvic floor, because I feel like it's getting a little bit more popular, but maybe I'm just like in my own little world. And hopefully I can have someone on here to talk about the pelvic floor a little bit more. But your pelvic floor can either like not have enough strength or connection to it, or it has too much tension. And this can cause things like incontinence. This can cause this could cause pain just in general. And this makes sense because, like I was talking about earlier, when you use intra-abdominal pressure, your diaphragm descends or it comes down. It creates that pressure in your abdominal cavity, and then your pelvic floor is supposed to come down and stretch as well. If it doesn't do that, it's gonna stay tense because it's never allowed to stretch out. So that's another reason why sucking in your stomach should only be used if you're taking a photo. Even then, I would say just let it hang out because you're a human being, and that's what human beings are supposed to look like. And I promise you, you just letting yourself be a little bit more loose isn't going to make that much of a difference. Another reason, and I feel like this is going to be the biggest one for most people to be like, this makes sense, to not suck in your stomach, is because you're creating a pattern of chest breathing, which is causing your neck pain. When you suck in your belly button, the pressure that you create when you're breathing, your like diaphragm can't go down because there's no space for it to go down. The air has to go somewhere because you gotta breathe somehow. And so it's gonna come all from your chest. And your diaphragm, like I said, is your primary muscle for breathing, but you do have muscles that are called your accessory muscles, or other muscles that you use in case like your body needs more help breathing. But what ends up happening is when your diaphragm can't be used, those other muscles, like your neck muscle, so you've got this muscle right here called your scalene and your SEM, or your sternocleidomastoid. That's one of those where you're like, is that a dinosaur or is that a muscle? It is a muscle. Or things like your upper traps. Those all take in, and then you start becoming like this and only being able to breathe from your chest because those are the only muscles that you're able to use to actually get a breath in. So that's why when you do things like yoga or something and they tell you just to like relax your shoulders, it's really hard to do because the only way that you can breathe is through your chest. And so right now, what I want you to do as you're listening to this podcast, maybe you're sitting in the car, maybe you're going on a walk. If you're going on a walk, maybe like sit down right now. Maybe there's a bench or something. I'm imagining you just like walking through a park or something. Maybe there's something pretty out there, a butterfly. I don't know. And all I want you to do is just take a deep breath in and try and breathe as low as possible. Put your hands on the lower portion of your belly. And when I say lower portion of your belly, I mean like even lower than your belly button, like almost in your crotch area. And I want you to try and breathe into your hands. Just take a few deep breaths there. Then from there, what I want you to do is put your hands on your side. See if you can breathe out into your hands. And then as you're doing that, put your hand on your back. Try and breathe in your hand on your back. That's what I mean when I mean 360 breathing, is you're able to connect to all those points that I just talked about And you might actually find that the anxiety that you're experiencing, the tension in your muscles that you're experiencing, will start to calm down. And you will be calmer, your body will be calmer, and the tension that you're experiencing will lessen. And this is why you should stop sucking in your stomach. And I will die on this hill forever, because I'm tired of people saying that they need to be smaller when actually you're allowed to take up space and you need to breathe bigger than you think you realize. So let's stop sucking in our stomach. And the next thing I'm going to talk about is let's stop sticking the booty out. It's, again, great for the pictures. Do it if you want. But when you're walking around in everyday life, like, this is causing dysfunction. And the reason why this is like, people stick out their butt not only to like make their butt look bigger, but this also causes your ribs to flare out. And this may be because, like, in the pictures, you're like, I want to look a little bit skinnier, or I want to have a bigger chest. But what happens here, and if you look at this position that I'm in, if my diaphragm is here, and I have to breathe down like this, and it's almost like the only way I can explain it is those, like, rainbow things that you used in, like, PE. That's kind of like what your diaphragm looks like. And it encompasses, like, all the lower part of your rib cage at the bottom. And so when it comes down, it's supposed to, like, come straight down right on top of your pelvic floor. But when you're in this position, it goes that way. So if you can't see this right now, it's like going away, like right in front of my body, because that's the direction you're pushing that pressure. And so again, you're going to start using those accessory muscles in your neck to take over the breathing, because your body's like, I need help to, like, get this breath to move, and I need more oxygen in my body, and your body's going to figure out a way how to do that. Not only that, but you're in this position, and here's your spine. This area, like your mid part of your back, mid lower part of your back, is going to start feeling really tight and stuck. And if you're a chiropractor like me, we're going to find something there that's probably called a restriction, and I'm going to need to adjust that area, typically. And that might be causing your low back pain as well. The interesting part here is, like I said, the diaphragm is in that area, and your breath is going to be going forward. Your diaphragm also attaches in that area as well. So it's going to make it really hard to get that 360 breathing. And it's going to be hard to get that intra-abdominal pressure. It's going to be hard to brace. And you might be experiencing some low back pain, especially when you're squatting. And you might have some erectors, which are like muscles that are on the side of your spine. They might be like sausages. And you could probably just like grab on them. And like they're super thick. And that just shows you in your body how much tension that you're holding due to you not being able to breathe. Another way that you could kind of test this is if you had someone, like, or you could probably do this yourself, kind of like find the bony parts of the underpart of your rib cage and kind of feel it. If that's tender there, it's probably because your diaphragm isn't able to, like, breathe. I don't want to say breathe the way that it's not supposed to breathe, but it's like it's not able to get that full lowering that it's supposed to be doing. Again, if you don't believe me, we're going to try a little trick here. So what I want you to do is to suck in, and then I want you to feel the side of your spine where those erectors are that I was talking about. And you'll probably feel those little sausages start sticking out. And I want you to try and breathe from here. It's kind of hard. I'm trying to do it myself and talk at the same time, and it's really hard. Now what I want you to do is relax, so like reset. And I want you to rub that middle part of your spine kind of that part where I was saying, like, if I was to, like, stick my butt out, that area, I want you to rub right there for a little bit. And you'll probably feel some, like, bony areas there. That's your spine. They're called your spinous processes. And then what I want you to do is I want you to take your whole hand, and I want you to put your palms on your back to where, like, your thumb is pressed or pointing down. And I want you to take a big, deep breath in. And then out. Was that a little bit easier? Maybe if you're, like, in that booty out position, I want you to, like, actually tuck your tailbone under a little bit and, like, stack your hips underneath your shoulders or your ribs. And I want you to try and breathe in. Try and get your rib cage to, like, breathe out. Or another way that you can think about this is imagine that you got a balloon attached to your butthole, and I want you to I want you to blow up a balloon through your butthole. Try and do that. Do that a few times for me. Now, I want you to go back and feel those erectors. They're probably a little bit softer. They're not as much sausages as what they were before. And this is what happens when your diaphragm is allowed to descend. Your body tells a story of your movement patterns and positions. If you're holding a lot of tension, if you're afraid to loosen your belly, if you've always been told to wear tight pants so that you feel like, or if you always feel like you have to wear tight pants to feel like you're sucking in and, like, looking skinnier, this may be causing some dysfunction in your body that is related to the pain that you're experiencing. This is why the way that you train matters. It matters because if you want to be able to do whatever activities that you enjoy, whether that be running, whether that be lifting, whether that be playing tennis or basketball, you need to be able to breathe 360 and at minimum be able to create intra-abdominal pressure, because that's what we were created to do. If you have any questions about intra-abdominal pressure, 360 breathing, bracing, hollowing, all the things, please send me an email at beccababelspodcast@gmail.com or DM me on Instagram at Becca Ann Wellness, and I would be happy to talk about this further with you. I really enjoy this topic because I feel like we have been told, especially as females, all of our lives that, like, you need to suck in your stomach and get smaller, when in actuality, it's the opposite. I had a friend who had a patient who I was shadowing at the time. And I was teaching her this, and she had said, "Oh yeah, this is fat girl breathing, where you suck in your stomach because that's what you were told your whole life." And that just made my heart really sad. I don't feel like anyone should feel that way, whatever size they are. They deserve to feel good in their body, mentally, physically, and emotionally. So if you want to work with me, I am still taking patients at Parker University in the DFW area. There is a link in the podcast description. Please fill that out. And if you just want to talk to me about what that would look like, I would be happy to talk to you about that. Or if you would like to schedule an appointment, do that as well. With all that being said, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I can't wait to babble with you next time. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Becca Babbles Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, the best thing that you can do is leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other listening platform of your choosing. If you want to learn more about me, you can do that by following me on Instagram at Becca Ann Wellness, or by checking out my blog, freebies, offers, and newsletter on my website at beccaannwellness.com. If you want to share the love of the podcast, you can do that by taking a screenshot and sharing it on social media and tagging me and the podcast at Becca Ann Wellness and using the hashtag Becca Babbles Podcast. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I can't wait to babble with you next time.